Spotlight. Today, Scufflemoss has with him Jack Brunson. Say hello, Jack.
Hello, Jack.
You thought you were being clever.
No, I feel like that one's pretty played out at this point.
It kind of is.
They saw it coming, right? Like,
Yeah.
surely.
Yeah, but it works.
Yeah.
It still works. So, Jack, you play in several bands here locally in Murfreesboro, correct?
From time to time, yeah.
From time to time. Which ones would those be?
Let's see. Oh, God. I play the bass for Toxic Culture. I play the bass for These Heathens, formerly known as Uncle Skunkle and the Scarecrow Family Band, coming soon. We're gonna do our 10-year reunion. It's our 10 year of being a band. I play bass for the band Mouth Reader. I once played guitar for the band Casual Sex, and I played bass for the band Ep3. And I think that's my only active bands right now. Though I still have an old one that gets together from time to time for a reunion show. And I have to learn, relearn 12 songs in a week and redo it all.
Very cool. So, Jack, one of your passions is not just music, and we will get to music parts too. But your passion seems to be guitars.
I do love a good guitar, I'll tell you that.
You really do. You brought 4 guitars with you to show. So, what is that one that you have there?
So this is a 1959 Silvertone. It's basically the same make as a Dan Electro U1. They would have sold these in a Sears and Roebuck catalog, or at the Woolworths or any dime store. That's why I like to call the guitars I work on dime store guitars. They were all sold through Sears and Roebuck, sold through Woolworths, intended to be sent out as Christmas presents and stuff like that. But this one, so it was 1952, Fender puts out the Fender Telecaster, and it changes the world, because it's oh, we can hear the guitar now, because we could never hear the acoustic guitar in the jazz band, and we could never hear it, So the electrification of the guitar was holy crap, now we can hear the guitar. And so as soon after, of course, there was a market to who can make an electric guitar the most affordable, right? So this is where this came in. And so Sears and Roebuck and all of these dime stores really came on the forefront of it, and they teamed up with companies like Harmony, Dan Electro, Valco. And they started trying to make these guitars just as cheap and affordable and accessible to the general public as possible. It's actually a really fun story on this guitar is that this is what they call a lipstick pickup here. And the story on these pickups is that they allocated one of the old cosmetics factories to be the new guitar factory. So when they went out there to clean out the factory to start putting in all the guitar stuff, they found just boxes and boxes and boxes of lipstick cases. I mean, just tons of them.
So is that really a lipstick case?
It was really a lipstick tube that they found at an old cosmetics factory. They developed the pickups and wound them in such a way that they would fit in the lipstick tubes, and then they repurposed the lipstick tubes to be the pickup cases. And so that's why they're called lipsticks, because they do look like lipstick, but that's because they literally were lipstick casings.
So that one right there is?
Yes, this is one of the vintage ones, so this would have been one of the cases they found at the original factory. Now since then they've started making repros of these that, they just make the casing to make the pickup. But originally, yes, they were repurposed lipstick cases.
Because when Scufflemoss was looking at this, he noticed that that specific pickup is different than most pickups, as if you don't mind.
Yes, go ahead.
When you're looking at a pickup, you will generally see some of these copper bits, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Copper to pick up the different strings and the vibrations that come from the strings. So you have these little dots. Don't know if you can see it on there, but that one does not have it. How did you learn about this?
A lot of time on the internet, a lot of personal interest. I got really fascinated with these old, like I said, dime store guitars, just because it was the Wild West back then. Everyone was just trying to make everything as quirky and kooky as they could, and they were coming up with all these great innovative ideas at the time, Like you said, generally you would have pulp pieces and then you'd have copper wire wrapped around a magnet. That same copper wire is wrapped around the center pole magnet but it's just all encased in this. So it actually uses the lipstick case as the like magnetic conduit.
This is incredible.
So it's just stuff like that was fascinating. Or like, if I may, why don't you do this so this won't make a whole bunch of noise. So it started in America, right? Making American guitars, and that's where your Silvertones, your Dan Electros Harmonies. Harmonies were made in Chicago, right above, from the, I think the 1900s on. And they, I learned this recently. I read a whole book on my flight home from the Southwest recently about Harmony. And the thing I thought was interesting is that Sears and Roebuck bought Harmony in 1930. I think it was actually like 35, but it wasn't because of the guitar industry at the time. It was because the ukulele was like hugely popular with Hawaiian music and everything. So Sears and Roebuck acquired Harmony because of the ukulele, and because of that, like 15 years later, they were in a prime position to start making guitars, which would become like the most popular thing on the planet at the time.
So around this time, that would be the 1950s, 1960s, that is when Elvis was very popular.
Oh,
so
yes.
Blue Hawaii, that would obviously be why ukulele.
A lot of people attribute it to South Pacific and that kind of stuff. Like the South Pacific musical really launched Hawaiian music, and there was a whole trend of it. And so that's why Sears and Roebuck ended up acquiring the Harmony Stringed Instrument Company. But little did they know at the time, it was just like the luckiest thing they could have done, because they started making guitars in the 50s and 60s and made a buku of money.
Play us a little something on this beautiful kit.
So this thing is pretty nuts, just because it has so many options. Going back to that Wild West thing I was talking about, you know, you see this in America. The early guitars, they were very simple, like one simple wiring, one pickup, a little bit of tone control, and that's pretty much all you got. You might get 2 pickups, something like that. In this, you get, let's see, 4 pickups. They all turn on individually. You have 2 tone pots and 2 rhythm and solo circuits. So you just have like so much variance in the tone you can get out of these things. Been calling this guitar the Gutbucket. It was in pieces when I got it. The neck was screwed on by a big long screw that went through here. When I took it off, the neck just went floop right off. And so I had to glue the neck back on, and I decided if I was going to go to that great of length to do it, I might as well make it like electric and really cool. This is the one that drew my blood. I almost slashed my finger off on the knob, so it's actually had my blood, sweat, and tears put into it. See, I think this is just begging for this kind of stuff. I just want someone to start this and do like a one-man band kind of thing with it, you know. And then the last guitar I brought, there you go. You can play that if you want to.
This thing is the size of Scufflemoss.
It kind of is. A friend of mine came over and played it, and he said it's kind of like playing a piece of furniture, like if you were to pick up your coat rack and play it or something.
Feels like a couch.
Yeah, if you really just had a very musical bookshelf, that's your musical bookshelf right there.
Yes, you knew what I was playing.
I think I got it.
Exactly. So, tell us a little bit about this one.
So this is I brought this because it's a little pet project of mine. A lot of these are called Parlor Guitars. They're 3/4 scale of a normal guitar. They were mainly produced to be student guitars, obviously, but they became very nostalgic for people, especially the Harmony Stella, which I didn't have one to bring, but that's the parlor guitar that everyone remembers. But a lot of the older guys, the baby boomers, they got those Harmony Stellas for their Christmas, their birthday, whatever. They're really fond memories for people. So I find them in varying condition, as I mentioned, and generally the ones that are in player shape, which when you're talking about vintage guitars, there's kind of two measures. It's is it collector shape or is it player shape? Collector shape being, this is pristine, this needs to go in a glass case, no one needs to touch it, this needs to go in someone's collection. Yeah, the other one being, this one is kind of beat, and, but it plays good and sounds good and should be played, right?
Yes, yes.
So I take the player's grade ones sometimes and I put in these gold foil pickups here, and then I wire in just a simple volume control, and then a jack out the side. And so it gives this like old kind of smaller guitar electric volume. And I think it makes it sound like the guitar player from Cake in the beginning of Italian Leather Sofa. That chunk, chunk. Yeah, it really has that kind of tone, or you can get that, stomp rock kind of, rock and roll tone. I actually have had great successes. It's probably about the 12th or so one of these I've made like this. I've sold, I think I sent 3 of them to Japan.
Oh, whoa!
Yeah, people in Japan really like these things, like electrified parlors. They sell really well over there.
We know now that you are in several bands and you restore these beautiful guitars, which thank you for educating us.
Oh, yes.
Learned so many new things about guitars today. You also help to organize a local festival called the Borofondo, correct?
Yes, Borofondo Festival.
Good. So, what is the Borofondo Festival?
Well, Borofondo is another passion project of mine and my wife's. We've been working on it since, I think 2014 was our first year working on it. But it's a Murfreesboro tradition. We get 500 to 1,000 people on bicycles, and you ride from stop to stop, seeing 2 or 3 bands at each stop, and taking in some great local art and performance art and all that sort of thing. We ride in mass at a very slow, leisurely pace, so it's a lot of fun for everybody. We'll have food trucks, it's all BYOB as long as you're very reasonable about such things. But no, Borofondo, it's a great Murfreesboro tradition. It's historically very family friendly, and it's just been a big part. Actually, one of the first times that me and my wife Jamie hung out was at the second Tour de Fun, which was the precursor to Borofondo.
So, Chuck, we had a lot of fun talking about guitars.
I always have fun talking about it.
It's always so much fun.
You get me started and I won't shut up.
Speaking of that, you were telling Scufflemoss a little bit a while ago that you are planning on possibly doing a podcast of sorts.
Yeah, that's something that's in the developmental stages for me right now. As I just said, I do love talking about guitars. I especially love guitar history because I'm a history nerd. History was always my favorite subject.
Same.
So I feel like there's a lot of background on Fender and Gibson and Martin and Taylor, the big guitar companies. But there are niche books and stuff you can read, but there's not a whole lot of great compilation stories about the founding of these things, or why in the hell does this thing exist is a question that's worth asking and exploring. So I think that those are the things that I'd like to talk about. Actually, you got a little taste of it today because I'm planning to do a whole episode on the lipstick pickup and that little story. I kind of just gisted up there, but I really want to go in depth on that, and because I have access to a lot of these guitars too, I can do samples and have people play, and I probably will have guests on the show as well, so be looking out for that, my certain trolley friend.
Yes, so friends, keep an eye out for Jack's Guitarcheology.
Guitarcheology. It's
Guitarcheology.
guitar archaeology.
Yes.
Yeah.
Keep on the lookout for that. And we're going to put a link to Jack's store right here in the description. And friends, until next time, keep on scuffling.